For decades, Florida marketed itself as the crown jewel of American tourism, a state where sunshine was not merely atmospheric condition but a foundational economic pillar. Millions of affluent retirees, vacationers, and international visitors pumped billions into local economies, transforming coastal beaches and towering condo complexes into relentless financial engines. Yet, in the span of just 6 catastrophic months in 2025, that entire economic foundation was ruthlessly destroyed. The collapse was not triggered by hurricanes, global recessions, or unpredictable pandemics, but by the deliberate, hostile actions of the very politicians elected to protect the state's prosperity. Reckless rhetoric and overtly hostile policies aimed at foreign residents triggered the immediate and permanent collapse of Florida's single most valuable customer base, the Canadian snowbirds. With their mass exodus, what a staggering $6.6 billion in annual spending, $2.1 billion in property tax revenue, 60% of regional medical clinic income, and the direct elimination of tens of thousands of service sector jobs. Airlines slashed critical routes, condominium values plummeted by 30%. Once booming tourist towns were suddenly converted into irreversible financial sinkholes. This was not a calculated risk, it was a deliberate act of political suicide. A state that arrogantly believed it could replace predictable, long-term foreign revenue with volatile, short-term domestic tourists discovered that the mathematics of replacement were impossible. The Sunshine State sacrificed its own economic future for ephemeral ideological points, and the financial wreckage is absolute and permanent. This 500-word manifesto will dissect the Florida implosion, a tragedy of economic denial and political failure. We will track the chain reaction of collapse as it spread from tourism into real estate, healthcare, construction, and municipal finance. We will expose the staggering math that proves the Canadian customer base is irreplaceable, and detail how Florida's competitors instantly capitalized on this disaster, permanently rewiring global tourism flows. The story of Florida in 2025 is the definitive blueprint for what happens when political ego prioritizes hostile posturing over long-term economic survival. By early 2025, the internal cracks in Florida's tourism model were no longer subtle market fluctuations. They were accelerating statistical avalanches that screamed of an impending existential crisis. The warning signs appeared in every metric tied to the predictable inflow of northern wealth. The collapse began with quantifiable metrics. Rental bookings from Canadians plummeted 31% in January 2025 compared to the previous year. Simultaneously, property searches by Canadian buyers fell 45%, leaving real estate agents across the Gulf Coast staring at empty inboxes, where lucrative inquiries once poured in. Airlines, historically reliant on seasonal Canadian traffic to fill critical winter seats, reported a devastating 38% decline in reservation volumes for a state whose entire winter economy was built on these predictable inflows. These figures represented not a dip, but the immediate, existential collapse of its foundation. Florida's political leaders arrogantly dismissed these initial losses as temporary volatility. However, within weeks, temporary became permanent, confirmed by the grim financial prognosis delivered by local tourism authorities. By mid-February, nearly all Canadian snowbird bookings for the core winter season were irrevocably gone. The immediate economic consequences were terrifyingly fast and comprehensive. Roughly $6.6 billion in Canadian household spending evaporated not across years, but within a 6-month period. This loss was not superficial. Canadians averaged $33,000 per household during their 6-month stays, injecting capital directly into the local lifelines of restaurants, car rentals, medical facilities, golf courses, and property maintenance services. The math of replacement sealed Florida's fate. To replace the economic impact of just one Canadian snowbird household, the state would require 28 American families visiting annually. Given that the average domestic tourist spends only about $1,000 to $100 per week to compensate for the aggregate loss of 500,000 Canadian snowbirds, Florida required 14 million additional American families showing up each year. That demand does not and cannot exist at scale, proving no marketing campaign could ever manufacture a replacement for the consistent, high-value, long-stay Canadian visitor. Real estate became the first visible casualty of this financial absurdity. Seasonal homes that once sold within days began flooding the market. Inventory levels in Naples, Sarasota, and Clearwater doubled in less than 90 days. Condominiums specifically designed for snowbird ownership sat unsold, immediately dragging down overall property values by 30% in heavily seasonal areas. The vital foreign property tax contributions, estimated at $2.1 billion annually, shrank quarter by quarter, leaving local governments staring down massive, intractable deficits. The snowbirds were long-term economic anchors, and without them, Florida's winter economy instantaneously resembled a skyscraper, with its entire foundation ripped out, leading to an immediate, chain reaction collapse across every connected sector. When the Canadian exodus became statistically undeniable, Florida's economy did not experience a gradual slowdown. It underwent a profound fracture, sector by dependent sector. The collapse was immediate and acute because snowbirds represented long-term, 6-month economic engines whose sustained absence left holes no weekend traveler could ever fill. Real estate became the primary domino. By spring 2025, condo listings in seasonal hotspots surged to levels unseen since the toxic inventory buildup of the 2008 crash. In Lee County alone, active listings increased 82% in just 3 months, driven almost entirely by the accelerated pace of Canadian sell-offs. Prices in heavily seasonal complexes dropped a catastrophic 30%, while rental markets imploded as landlords who relied on reliable 6-month snowbird tenants faced vacancy rates climbing rapidly past 40%. Florida's collective counties suffered the direct loss of $2.1 billion in annual property tax revenue from the disappearing foreign ownership, a financial hole that proved utterly impossible to plug with the shrinking purchasing power of local buyers. The restaurant and retail sectors followed instantly. Canadians were known for longer stays and consistent daily spending, accounting for up to 35% of peak revenue in Gulf Coast towns. By March 2025, restaurant associations reported sales down 50% to 70% year-over-year, leading to tens of thousands of immediate layoffs. Retailers tied to tourist consumption, including gift shops, golf suppliers, and grocery chains, posted some of their worst quarterly numbers in decades. The period that should have been Florida's peak revenue season became its absolute worst performing. The healthcare sector suffered an equally devastating collapse. Seasonal visitors historically scheduled essential surgeries, dental work, and specialist visits during the Florida winters. In Broward County, outpatient centers reported 60% declines in total patient volume, wiping out entire service lines and rendering recently expanded, multi-million-dollar facilities immediately redundant. Clinics that had invested millions to meet the projected snowbird demand were suddenly operating at half capacity, with some forced into bankruptcy protection. The construction sector quickly collapsed next. Canadian homeowners were historically aggressive spenders on renovations, maintenance, and property upgrades. By April 2025, Florida contractors specializing in seasonal properties reported revenue declines, averaging 70%, with thousands of tradesmen immediately exiting the industry. Building permits, the financial fuel for small-town economies, plummeted, leaving entire local workforces idle and generating massive, latent unemployment. Finally, airports and airlines bore the immense brunt of the fallout. Major hubs like Tampa International, Orlando Sanford, and Southwest Florida International had invested hundreds of millions into expanding terminals, specifically for snowbird inflows. With demand vanished, airlines immediately slashed 40% of routes tied to Canadian hubs. Regional airports saw passenger volumes collapse by nearly 3 million seats annually, forcing staff cuts and facility closures. Rental car agencies faced catastrophic overstocked fleets, liquidating thousands of vehicles at auction to stem losses. Florida had engineered its entire economic system to run on the consistent, high-value engine of long-term Canadian residents. When that engine failed due to political hostility, every dependent system failed with it. The collapse did not stop at Florida's state borders. It created a global vacuum that international competitors wasted absolutely no time filling, aggressively moving to steal Florida's lucrative snowbird customer base. What Florida discarded due to political posturing, the world absorbed, instantly turning a regional financial collapse into a permanent international shift in tourism. And wealth flows worth billions. Portugal moved with strategic speed and precision. Within weeks of Florida's policy blunders and hostile rhetoric, Lisbon launched highly targeted, sophisticated marketing campaigns in Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. These campaigns explicitly promised sunshine without hostility, emphasizing safety, superior affordability, and guaranteed healthcare access for retirees. The results were immediate and powerful. Canadian bookings to Portugal's Algarve coast surged 40% in early 2025, while real estate agencies reported a 52% increase in property inquiries from Canadian retirees, with average winter rentals costing just $1.200 per month, less than half the typical fees associated with a Florida condo. Portugal offered the same weather at a fraction of the cost and zero political risk. Mexico capitalized with equal aggression. The Mexican government strategically streamlined its retiree visa program, allowing Canadians to secure long-term residency in a streamlined 30 days. Coastal hotspots like Puerto Vallarta and Cancun saw Canadian arrivals rise 36% year-over-year, with spending averaging $24,000 per household per winter season. Crucially, healthcare costs sealed the deal. A full medical checkup with comprehensive dental care in Mexico averaged $95, compared to thousands of dollars in unavoidable out-of-pocket charges. In the fractured Florida health system, the Caribbean doubled down on its niche. Nations including Barbados, the Dominican Republic, and the Bahamas coordinated integrated campaigns emphasizing political stability, established English-speaking medical services, and guaranteed safety. Canadian tourism boards recorded a 28% increase in bookings to Caribbean destinations, with Barbados alone absorbing 11,000 long-stay Canadian retirees in 2025. These visitors collectively contributed an estimated $350 million in seasonal spending, money that historically flowed exclusively into Florida's Gulf Coast. The scale of this diversion was staggering and permanent. Collectively, Canada's affluent retirees reallocated over $4.2 billion in winter spending to alternative, international destinations in less than a single year. Florida had spent decades aggressively building itself as the default, reliable snowbird refuge. Now, its competitors rebranded the state as the cautionary tale to actively avoid. What made this transition permanent was strategic infrastructure investment. Portugal opened new English-speaking clinics tailored specifically for retirees. Mexico partnered with major Canadian banks for seamless cross-border financial transactions. Caribbean islands introduced targeted property tax exemptions for foreign buyers, while Florida's lawmakers actively pushed foreign residents away with hostile legislation and rhetoric. Other nations were strategically rolling out robust, red carpet financial and medical infrastructure. Florida's collapse did not leave a vacuum. It created a permanent, global migration of wealth. with billions instantly redirected to nations that understood a basic, undeniable principle: when you treat visitors with respect, their dollars and their future investment inevitably follow. As the world surged ahead, Florida's political leadership remained rigidly locked in denial, clinging to the pretense that the losses were temporary market fluctuations. This profound disconnect between the financial numbers and the political narrative is what fueled the state's true disaster, ensuring that what could have been a reversible blunder became a permanent structural deformity. While billions of Canadian dollars shifted to foreign markets, Florida's politicians prioritized ideological theater. Instead of acknowledging the devastating economic data, officials doubled down on hostile rhetoric that consistently prioritized political ideology over economic reality. By March 2025, Florida's Department of Revenue was quietly forced to report a $2.3 billion shortfall, directly attributable to the combined loss of foreign property taxes and lost sales tax collections. Regional tourism boards documented a 31% drop in international arrivals, a figure equal to nearly 2.4 million fewer visitors compared to the prior year. Yet, in public, politicians continued to dismiss the devastating downturn as mere seasonal variation. Internal memos revealed the political disaster in sharp relief. Leaked documents from the Tampa Bay Tourism Authority detailed projections of 70,000 seasonal job losses across essential sectors by the end of 2025. And one report estimated that without immediate, dramatic policy reversal, Florida could face $9.8 billion in cumulative economic damage within 2 years. Despite these dire, quantifiable warnings, bills restricting foreign property ownership continue to advance through the legislature, unequivocally signaling to Canadians that the institutional hostility was permanent. The state's leadership defended draconian fingerprinting requirements for long-term visitors, framing them as essential security measures. The reality was economic suicide. Every additional bureaucratic barrier reduced average stay lengths, costing the state $800 million annually in lost expenditure, while property ownership restrictions removed the strongest financial anchor of Canadian loyalty. The financial tragedy was compounded by deliberate denial. Admitting the direct, undeniable connection between the anti-Canadian policy and the state's economic collapse meant admitting profound political failure. For the lawmakers involved, short-term political survival and ideological consistency outweighed the long-term, structural prosperity of the state. The most devastating reality is the permanence of the loss. By mid-2025, economists universally agreed that the departure of the Canadian snowbirds had created losses that simply cannot be reversed by waiting for a new season. The exodus severed trust, dismantled supporting infrastructure, and fundamentally rewired global tourism flows. The trust deficit is the highest barrier. Canadians shifted their capital, built new homes, established medical systems, and formed new communities in Portugal and Mexico. Reversing that entrenched migration would require years of guaranteed political stability, a guarantee Florida can no longer offer. The $4.2 billion that left in the first year is not circling back. It has been permanently invested elsewhere. Stranded infrastructure compounds the crisis. Airports and terminals designed for snowbird traffic are now operating at half capacity, leaving municipalities locked into debt repayments without the revenue to service them. Municipal bond ratings in key counties faced immediate downgrades, as projected deficits exceeded $1.5 billion collectively. Tax bases collapsed alongside real estate values, forcing local governments to face the impossible math of funding non-scalable services, road maintenance, emergency services with relentlessly shrinking revenue streams. Florida did not just lose one season, it lost the structural foundation of its winter economy, confirming that the economic damage is not cyclical, but permanent. Florida's economic implosion isn't merely a state-level misfortune. It serves as a stark, undeniable prophecy of what transpires when rigid political ideologies clash head-on with the fundamental, quantifiable principles of economics. The alarm bells are ringing far beyond the borders of the Sunshine State, resonating throughout the nation. Because international tourism isn't a discretionary luxury, it's a vital engine driving America's overall economic prosperity. The abrupt departure of the Canadian snowbirds, those seasonal visitors who once flocked to Florida's sunny shores, laid bare just how swiftly billions of dollars in revenue can evaporate when foreign visitors feel fundamentally unwelcome and, indeed, actively ostracized. In 2024 alone, foreign visitors infused over $113 billion into the U.S. GDP, a figure that sustained nearly 1.7 million American jobs. From hotel staff and restaurant workers to tour guides and retail employees, Canadians alone contributed a staggering $22 billion annually to that total, a testament to their enduring economic significance. Florida's fiscal freefall serves as a chilling reminder of just how delicate and precarious these financial relationships can be. If Florida, with its once irresistible allure, could hemorrhage nearly 40% of its international rivals in a mere 6 months, due to a perceived atmosphere of political hostility and unwelcoming policies, what's to prevent Arizona from experiencing a similar exodus of its own snowbird base? Those retirees who fuel the state's winter economy. What safeguards are in place to prevent Nevada from witnessing a catastrophic collapse of its Asian tourism sector, triggered by similar echoes of divisive political rhetoric? The precedent has been unequivocally established. Hostile policies invariably translate into vanishing revenue streams, leaving gaping holes in state and local budgets. Municipal governments across America are now observing bond markets with palpable anxiety, as investors begin to factor in a new, unsettling variable: political risk. Florida counties heavily reliant on Canadian property taxes have seen their deficits balloon to an alarming $1.5 billion, prompting immediate and painful credit rating downgrades, further exacerbating their financial woes. The investment community is now incorporating political instability as a significant risk factor when assessing the viability of U.S. tourism-dependent economies. A risk that was once reserved for countries plagued by coups and civil unrest. This reputational damage isn't confined to the local level. It bleeds into the overall national perception of American reliability, stability, and, perhaps most importantly, hospitality. The lesson that emerges from this crisis is unambiguous and profoundly vital. America can no longer afford to assume that high-value international visitors are a permanent fixture or that their absence can be easily remedied. The economic math simply doesn't support such complacency. To compensate for the loss of Florida's Canadian visitors alone, the nation would require an unprecedented influx of approximately 1.8 million additional U.S. families. each willing to spend an average of $3,600 per season. Such a surge in domestic demand, while theoretically possible, is currently non-existent at any meaningful scale. Florida's economic collapse isn't just a regional setback. It constitutes a national-level warning of potentially catastrophic proportions. The critical question now is whether other states will heed this cautionary tale, learning from Florida's act of economic self-destruct, or whether they will choose to repeat it, ensuring that unchecked growth, devoid of respect and stability, inevitably culminates in permanent financial disaster. The stakes couldn't be higher.